Joining me now, Pennsylvania Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, member of the House Judiciary Committee and former House impeachment manager in the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump, and Neal Katyal, MSNBC legal analyst, former acting Solicitor General of the United States, and Saunders Professor of Law at Georgetown University. Thank you both very much for coming back to the Sunday Show. Neal, let me start with you and the next steps in the classified documents case. The only upcoming date on the calendar is a June 27th hearing where Walt Nauta, Trump's personal aide, who's also charged in the indictment, will enter his plea. Why didn't he enter his plea at the time when he showed up in court on Tuesday with the former president?
So first of all, Jonathan, happy Father's Day to you and all of our great viewers. With respect to Walt Nauta, he didn't enter a plea because evidently he couldn't get local counsel in time. The rules require a person who's admitted to that very court, the Southern District of Florida federal court, and he couldn't secure that in time. And you might recall Donald Trump also had trouble securing an attorney, just like hours before, got one of his existing attorneys to act as that person. But Nauta couldn't in time, and if you're Walt Nauta, I think you really do have to worry about the different treatment that Trump has, from having a lawyer to not having to do a mugshot the way Walt Nauta does and the like. Nauta is Donald Trump's personal valet, a person who was in the room when all this stuff happened. And so I think prosecutors have been trying for a long time to see if they can flip him.
Oh, and, I'm glad you brought that up, Neal, because I was going to follow up and ask you there was a lot of talk about that since they showed up in that Miami court on Tuesday. What is the likelihood that someone so close to Trump, still literally right next to him, would flip on him?
Well, it's always hard to know because, it does really depend on loyalty, sometimes on threats from the boss to the subordinate, so there's all sorts of stuff. But I can tell you, it sure looks like Trump is worried about that because Walt Nauta didn't just arrive at the courthouse himself, Jonathan, on Tuesday. He arrived in Trump's motorcade. Donald Trump didn't let him out of Walt Nauta out of his sight the entire time, and indeed then went to the Cuban restaurant together afterwards, all because I suspect, if you're Donald Trump, Nauta is a very scary possibility against you. I don't think the prosecution, by the way, needs Nauta at all. I think there's, overwhelming evidence that we see in the indictment already. Obviously, Donald Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence. But at this point, I haven't heard any defense from Donald Trump that I think is going to hold up. In court, you can't send someone to the witness stand screaming about Hillary's email or Joe Biden's garage. That's not a legal argument.
Let me get you on another state, another possibility that could pop up. As you know, Andrew Weissman and Brian Goodman wrote an article in The Atlantic where they posit the possibility that Special Counsel Jack Smith might bring charges in New Jersey against Donald Trump following the revelations in that Florida indictment that he showed to unauthorized people those classified documents in Bedminster. Is that really a possibility? Is that a plan B, or will that be in addition to, do you think?
So the venue clause of the Constitution says that the trial of a criminal defendant shall take place in the district where the crime was committed. So the current indictment alleges Trump retained all of these documents after being asked for them back by law enforcement. So he unlawfully retained them and that he obstructed justice into that investigation. Much of that occurred in Florida, which is why the indictment happened there. But the indictment does mention these two other instances in which Trump didn't just retain the information, but he gave classified information to people who weren't entitled to receive it. Those acts took place in New Jersey. If Jack Smith wants to, absolutely has the ability to charge them there. And I'd also say, to the extent that the judge in Florida is delaying too much or appearing not to want to get to the truth, they also have the possibility of trying to indict in Washington, D.C. for some of these matters as well, because there is a Washington, D.C. connection, as Donald Trump has admitted himself by saying he made these decisions to retain the documents while he was in Washington, D.C.
Well, Congresswoman Dean, let me bring you into the conversation. You are also a lawyer. I want to put that out there. I would love to get your thoughts on the indictment, but also what do you make of this discussion among Republican candidates that they're having about possibly pardoning Donald Trump?
Well, good to be with you on this Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers in my life. And Neil, great to be with you. And thank you for your fine work around all of this, educating us. I have to tell you, anybody who has read this indictment would say it's really damning and clear what happened here. And to your point about showing the documents, it's literally page 2 and 3 in this indictment where they write and vividly tell the story of him showing the documents in Bedminster in the summer of 2021 to others in the room. And revealing that he knows he doesn't have the power to declassify them, that the people shouldn't get too close. These are still classified documents. Very, very damning. And when you read this, it's almost like a screenplay. I looked for the indictment around charging, showing them. But I think it is very interesting that that is not in this set of indictments for the reasons, I guess, that Neil just detailed for us. But it also does preserve for Jack Smith the possibility of an indictment in New Jersey.
You know, Congressman Jim Jordan, who chairs the House Judiciary Committee, is demanding that the Justice Department provide internal documents laying out the scope of Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation. Is that appropriate?
Oh, of course not. This is an independent investigation, and it must be kept independent. I'm certain that is not something that would be appropriate to come either before the Judiciary Committee or this bizarre committee called the Weaponization Committee that Jim Jordan is rapidly running. And it's been really fascinating and extraordinarily, I think, dangerous to see the comments that are being made, what you just said in terms of asking about pledges by possible candidates, the things that Jim Jordan and other members of the Republican Party, particularly in the House, this fealty to a twice impeached, now twice indicted former president, indicted for very serious things. I think equally serious is what Jim Jordan and others are doing to try to tear down the rule of law to prop up a single man. Remember, no one is above the law, and these folks have a fealty to one man rather than the Constitution.
Congresswoman, you sort of alluded to this, but I'd love to get you to talk about this a little bit further about what all this does to meaning the American people's faith in our federal institutions. How far have they eroded, do you think, in the, 2015, so carry the 8 years since Donald Trump came down that escalator?
Oh, I remember that day. June 16th, we just passed that day.
Yep.
When he came down the escalator. And I thought at the time, if you are embarked on such an important challenge, wouldn't you want to be climbing up something, not gliding with no effort down? Well, it was a metaphor for where he was to take us. But I've been searching in history to try to understand where are we, how did we get here, and how do we get out of this mess? And I was reading with interest something John Adams worried about. He worried about the vulgar rich. He worried that we were embarked on the most important endeavor of the human heart, as he wrote, and that it might not be torn apart for lack of wisdom, but for lack of virtue. This is where we are. He worried about this very thing, and it will be up to us to fight back against this lack of virtue, this vulgar rich that cares for self over others.
Neil, let me get you on one more thing before we have to go in like 15 seconds. Fani Willis, the Fulton County, Georgia case, she's put out lots of hints and clues about what her timetable will be, potentially early August. Do you think she will stick with that timetable?
Yeah, all indications are that she will. It does look like that case is heading to yet another indictment of Donald Trump. So you can chalk another one, Jonathan, another court date up for Donald Trump in addition to the ones you laid out. So Donald Trump at this point has more court dates than I have like rock concerts to go to. I mean, it's like every week or two. And I do think that this indictment already that we're talking about Jack Smith is so serious. You know, when Bill Barr says that he's toast, when his former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says it, when, you know, former Vice President Mike Pence says it, you know, former National Security Advisor for Trump John Bolton says it. I mean, at this point, it's Trump's entire cabinet who's saying, look, this is really serious and he's possibly going to jail.